done for show. When you release yours, will you follow your father's example?
Maybe. I don't know how many years I'll release. I'll take a look at what our documents are, and I'll release multiple years. I don't know how many years, but I'll be happy to do that. And let me tell you, I know there are some who are very anxious to see if they can't make it more difficult for a campaign to be successful. I know the Democrats want to go after the fact that I've been successful. I'm not going to apologize for being successful, and I'm not suggesting these people are doing that, but I know the Democrats will go after me on that basis, and that's why I want to release these things all at the same time. And my dad, as you know, born in Mexico, poor, didn't get a college degree, became head of a car company. I could have stayed in Detroit like him and gotten pulled up in the car company. I went off on my own. I didn't inherit money from my parents. What I have, I earned. I worked hard in the American way, and I'm going to be able to talk to President Obama in a way no one else can that's in this race right now about how the free economy works, what it takes to put Americans back to work, and make sure he understands that this divisiveness of dividing Americans between 99 and 1 is dangerous. We are one nation under God.
You've raised the topic of putting America back to work. I think we're ready for another question from our audience. Am I right? Not quite yet. All right, so let's stay up here for a second. Let's move to, you mentioned putting America back to work. Let's talk about something. Apple Computer. Apple Computer is a breathtakingly important American company. Senator Santorum, it's one of the most respected companies in the country. I've handed it off, but I carry Apple products to do my work every day. It employs about 500,000 people in China. It is based in the United States, has some employees here, about 40-something thousand, I think 46,000, most of them in retail stores and at the headquarters. 500,000 of them are in China. As a president of the United States, what do you do about that?
I'm the only person on this stage that will do something about it. I've got a specific plan in place that I've put out there called the Made in the USA plan for exactly these kinds of companies that have to create great technology and then go somewhere else to make them, because America is uncompetitive. And that's why we have to cut the corporate tax to zero for all corporations who manufacture and process in this country. People have said, well, why are you doing it for corporations and only cutting it at half, which I do, to 17.5% for the rest? It's because the local pharmacy is not going to move to China. They're not going to. The jobs that we're losing are jobs that we have to compete with other countries, and those are manufacturing jobs. The reason they're going there is not because our workers or our management in this country are not productive. We have great productivity gains. It's amazing the transformation that has been made in the last decade or two about our manufacturing processing here. It is simply government getting in the way. None of these folks do anything. I do dramatic things that send a signal. Apple, you have all those employees over there, you make all those profits over there. If you want to bring that money back, right now you pay a 35% tax. Under our plan, if you bring it back and invest it in plant and equipment here in Charleston, you pay nothing. You put that money to work. If you invest it, you pay nothing. It's a powerful incentive. You throw on top of that the energy policy that we put out there to revitalize the energy sector, which will create, again, manufacturing energy costs is a big deal. So we have an energy piece. We also have a piece having to do with regulations. The Obama administration has promulgated 2.5 times the number of regulations that cost American businesses over $100 million a year. 2.5 times the last 16 years of presidents. This president is putting a burden on manufacturers and business. It's the reason we're not making things here. I'll repeal every single one of those regulations on day one.
Congressman Paul, how do you revive Made in America?
You have to create the right conditions to bring these companies back, and they have to bring their capital back and shouldn't be taxed. But Apple's a great company, but the way you ask the question, it infers that because there's a bunch of workers overseas, it hasn't benefited a lot of people here. The consumers obviously have been benefited by a good company, well run. But obviously there's a lot of employees with Apple in this country as well. I don't think that's the number that you have to be concerned about. A lot of people worry about us buying and money going overseas. But if you send money to China, let's say they're paying wages over there and we send dollars over there, well, they don't put the dollars in a shoebox. They have to spend those dollars. Unfortunately, they're buying our debt and perpetuating our consumerism here and our debt here. But immediately there's a benefit to us because those dollars come back. But also, when you get products, if you're buying products cheaper over there, let's say the computer cost $100 instead of $1,000. Well, the person's just saved $900. That helps the economy. That $900 stays in that person's pocket. So whether it's shoes or a computer, so we shouldn't be frightened about trade or sending money on, but we have to look at the reason why they're doing this. I mean, even the car companies, there's obviously a problem with car companies here. They're in bigger trouble, and we had to bail them out. But there are foreign companies that build cars in this country, and they make a living out of it. So it's more complex than that, but we have to do whatever we can. I think the union problem, the right to work states, and of course I've chided Senator Santorum on this because he has voted, against right to work. But we have to change these conditions to invite people back. But believe me, the regulations and the fact that we are the issuer of the reserve currency of the world is a real temporary blessing for us because it's easy for us to export our money. That's unfortunately our greatest export, and they're still taking our money. Soon, though, they're going to quit, and this whole ball game is going to end, and we better get prepared for it.
He mentioned you, Senator Santorum. Go ahead, quickly.
Congressman Paul knows, because we've talked about this before, I've already signed a pledge and said I would sign a national right-to-work bill. And when I was a senator from Pennsylvania, which is a state that does not a right-to-work state, the state made a decision not to be right-to-work, and I wasn't going to go to Washington and overturn that from the federal government and do that to the state. That's a very different position.
Quickly, sir.
Yeah, the response should be, yes, I understand that. That's the way politics works. You voted the way you thought was best.
Representative government.
Yeah, for your state. But as president, are you going to represent South Carolina or Pennsylvania? That's really the question.
Well, maybe you didn't hear what I said. I said I would support a national right-to-work law and sign it into law and would support it and advocate for one.
Now let's continue the economic conversation with some input from a question from Twitter. If you look up here, you can see it, #CNN debate. What is your take on SOPA, and how do you believe it affects Americans? For those who have not been following that, SOPA is the Stop Online Piracy Act. Crackdown on internet piracy, which is clearly a problem. But opponents say it's censorship. Full disclosure, our parent company, Time Warner, says we need a law like this because some of its products, movies, programmings, and the like are being ripped off online. Let me start with you, Mr. Speaker. There's two competing ends, two engines even, of our economy here at odds on this. How do you deal with it?
Well, you're asking a conservative about the economic interest of Hollywood. And I'm weighing it. I'm weighing it. I'm not rushing in. I'm trying to think through all of the many fond left-wing people who are so eager to protect. On the other hand, you have virtually everybody who's technologically advanced, including, Google and YouTube and Facebook and all the folks who say this is going to totally mess up the internet, and the bill in its current form is written really badly and leads to a range of censorship that is totally unacceptable. Well, I favor freedom. And I think that I think that we have a patent office, we have copyright law. If a company finds that it has genuinely been infringed upon, it has the right to sue but the idea that we're going to preemptively have the government start censoring the internet on behalf of giant corporations' economic interest strikes me as exactly the wrong thing to do.
Mr. Speaker, right, Governor Romney, these companies complain, some of them are based in Hollywood, not all of them are, that their software, that their publishing, that their movies, that their shows are being ripped off.
I think he got it just about right. The truth of the matter is that the law as written is far too intrusive, far too expansive, far too threatening to freedom of speech and movement of information across the internet. It would have a potentially depressing impact on one of the fastest growing industries in America, which is the internet and all those industries connected to it. At the same time, we care very deeply about intellectual content that's going across the internet. And if we can find a way to very narrowly, through our current laws, go after those people who are pirating, particularly those from offshore, we'll do that. But a very broad law which gives the government the power to start stepping into the internet and saying who can pass what to whom, I think that's a mistake. And so I'd say, no, I'm standing for freedom.
I mean, it's a big issue in the country right now. Congressman Paul and Senator Santorum, your views on this one quickly.
I was the first Republican to sign on with a host of Democrats to oppose this law. And we have had a concerted effort, and I feel like we're making achievement there. This bill is not going to pass, but watch out for the next one. And I am pleased that the attitude is sort of mellowed up here, because the Republicans, unfortunately, have been on the wrong side of this issue. And this is a good example on why it's good to have somebody that can look at civil liberties and work with coalitions and bring people together. Freedom and the Constitution bring factions together. I think this is a good example.
Those who support the law, Senator, argue tens of thousands of jobs are at stake.
I don't support this law, and I agree with everybody up here that it goes too far, but I will not agree with everybody up there that there isn't something that can and should be done to protect the intellectual property rights of people. The internet is not a free zone where anybody can do anything they want to do and trample the rights of other people. And particularly when we're talking about, in this case, we're talking about entities offshore that are doing so, that are pirating things. So the idea that the government, that you have businesses in this country and that the government has no role to try to protect the intellectual property of people who have those rights in this country from people overseas pirating them and then selling them back into this country, it's great. I mean, I'm for free, but I'm not for people abusing the law, and that's what's happening right now, and I think something proper should be done. I agree this goes too far. But the idea that, anything goes on the internet, where did that come from? We're in America to say that anything goes. We have laws, and we respect the law, and the rule of law is an important thing, and property rights should be respected.
All right, gentlemen, I want to thank you. I ask our audience, applaud if you wish. Stand by 1 second. Take one more break. Much more of our Southern Republican presidential debate to come, including this question. After months of campaigning, if these candidates could do one thing over, what would it be? John King. We're live in Charleston, South Carolina, and this is the CNN Southern Republican presidential debate. Many of you are watching online, commenting on Twitter, Facebook, and at CNN.com. When we come back, we'll ask the four candidates for president this question. After months and months of campaigning, if you could do one thing over, what would it be? Stay with us.
Discover the film.
Welcome back to the Southern Republican presidential debate. I'm John King. We're live in Charleston, South Carolina. A lot more issues to wander through tonight, but I just want to take this moment. After months and months of campaigning, maybe this is fun, maybe it isn't. Speaker Gingrich, I want to start with you. You're at this for months and you're out there. If there's one thing, just one thing in this campaign you could do over, what would it be?
I would skip the opening 3 months where I hired regular consultants and tried to figure out how to be a normal candidate. And I would just go straight at being a big ideas, big solutions, internet-based campaign from day one. It just didn't work. I mean, it's not who I am. I'm not capable of being a sort of traditional candidate. I'm a very idea-oriented candidate, and I think the internet makes it possible to create a momentum of ideas that's very, very exciting.
Governor Romney?
Well, I'd have worked to get 25 more votes in Iowa, that's for sure. Let's see. I guess I also would go back and take every moment I spent talking about one of the guys on the stage and spent that time talking about Barack Obama, because the truth is that Barack Obama is just way over his head. And he's taking our country down a path that is very dangerous. He's making us more and more like a European social welfare state. He's making us an entitlement society. He's taking away the rights of our citizens. He believes government should run this country. Look, the right course for America is to return to our fundamental principles, and I would be talking about that more, and probably about my colleagues less, because frankly, any one of them would be a better president than the one we got.
Senator?
Actually thought about that, and you know what? I wouldn't change a thing. It's for me to be standing here in the Final Four is about as amazing a thing that I could have ever conceived of happening. Someone who had no money, who lost his last race, who everyone basically ignored as I traveled around South Carolina, Iowa, and